Well, hello and welcome back once again to another episode of the Politically Incorrect Redneck. My name is George Pern for the WRVO Radio Network and the Politically Incorrect Redneck. I just want to remind everybody that this show is being brought to you by Roy Nichols Motors, just east of Oshawa in Curtis, Ontario, or as we like to say, just east of high prices. Also, the show is being brought to you by the NFA, National Firearms Association, of which I am a proud member and field officer for the cause. Just a little reminder that if you own a gun here in Canada and you're not a member of the NFA, you need to give me a call or inbox me or get a hold of me in one way or another. My cell phone, I give it out every show, 905-447-6679. If you want to sign up for the NFA, you give me a call or you can inbox me at the Politically Incorrect Redneck on Facebook. I have on the line this evening Mr. Todd Brown of the Concerned Gun Owners of Alberta. He's going to be joining me talking about the gun issues out west. And how are you doing, Todd?
I am doing really well. How about yourself, George?
Fantastic. How's the weather out in Winfield, Alberta?
You had to ask, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's not any better here.
It's white and getting deeper.
Oh, no. Okay, so it is better here. Here it's just cold and windy.
If I see that rodent, he's on my hit list.
He's just a rodent, not a meteorologist, eh?
Yeah, I wish I was a meteorologist. I get paid for being wrong.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Anyways, the Concerned Gun Owners of Alberta. Tell me how that all came about. Well,
this happened about when C-19 was being debated in Parliament.
Okay.
And
explain C-19 to the listeners.
Oh, C-19 was the bill to get rid of the gun registry.
Very good.
Okay, and I met this fella at a coffee shop, and he was a gun nut too. And we got talking, and I started telling him about some of the things that were in the Firearms Act, and he couldn't hardly believe it. And I told him, well, you go home and check it out and come back and see me and give me your impression. And he come back and said, you were right about this stuff. What else have you got? And that's kind of how it was born. We started discovering that there was a lot of fellas, especially older guys, that thought that they could just not renew their license or anything, and we're like, no, guys, that's not what it means. So we went about re-educating people about what was actually happening to the gun laws. And in my searches, I found all sorts of neat stuff and scary stuff actually. When you consider that the Firearms Act was built around firearms confiscation. So we started educating people one at a time and had a few meetings, and now we've got a Facebook page up, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
Excellent. So your main goal is to educate the gun owners of Alberta as to what the legislation is about and how it can affect them.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're there's lots of other people that are going in different directions as far as marketing and raising awareness and all that sort of thing. We're all about education, and I've also been taking it upon myself to educate politicians as well. So
good luck with that.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm getting pretty good reception with the guys that I've been talking to. Now, where it goes from there is another matter entirely.
Well, that's the thing. I always find I have a politician's ear for as long as they think they need to give it to me in order to convince me to vote for them. After that, it's pretty much gone. I'm gone the wayside. But the interesting thing that you state there is about how many of the older guys, as you put it, in Alberta, that really didn't understand that if they don't have an RPAL or a PAL, that they're basically a paper criminal.
Yeah, they what the government had to do to bring in C-68 was to outlaw simple possession of firearms in Canada. So what people don't realize is that firearms, by de facto, are illegal in Canada. And the license that you receive is not a permission slip to buy a gun. It's actually defense against the charge of Sections 91 and 92 of the Criminal Code, which is possession of firearm without a license.
Now, how many, I don't expect you to put a number on it, but what percentage of the firearms owners that you know personally out in your area of Alberta do you think own firearms but are not possession of the proper documents?
Oh, man, that's a hard number to come by. I think everybody knows somebody that doesn't have a license or registration or something of that order, either through just plain ignorance or just saying that this is my civil disobedience, I don't agree with it, so I'm not going to do it. I really don't know. If I had to guess, I would say 50%. Yeah,
that's the number that I constantly seem to come up with through consensus of everybody is about 50-50. People who own guns and have the right documentation, and people who own guns and don't have the documentation. So there's 2 million people with the documentation, so that means there's approximately somewhere between 2 and 4 million, depending on whose numbers you believe, criminals in Canada that could go to jail for any time from 3 years on up.
Yeah, and it's just a paperwork crime is all it is.
And it's a paperwork crime. So maybe what we need to do is have these 4 million people turn themselves in and say, okay, put us all in jail.
Okay, now that would be funny to see.
Wouldn't it?
Handle this, guys.
Yeah. Now let's see you handle this mess that you've made. So I guess your group is after the same thing that the CSSA, the NFA, the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, and groups upon groups all across this country are after, and that's the abolition of Bill C-68 and Bill C-17.
Ultimately, yes.
Ultimately, that's your final goal.
Yeah, the reasons for it. Now, I'll go through a few of these reasons. This actually stems from the information that I've been getting from the Firearms Act itself. So all the information that I'm about to give you can be backed up by the Criminal Code or the Firearms Act. Like, it's all stuff that's already in there. So anybody, if you want to take the information and go check it out for yourself, have at her. I have no problem being double-checked or anything. But the first thing that people don't understand is the difference between licensing and a certification system.
Yes. Yeah, please explain that to our listeners.
Yes. Everybody, especially the older guys, they still refer to it as an FAC. Mm-hmm. Now, that stands for Firearms Acquisition Certificate.
Right.
And the regime we have now is called, as you already said, a PAL, which is Possession Acquisition License. Now, a licensing system and a certification system, two different critters right there. That's like having a horse and a zebra, or a horse and an elephant, maybe would be a better one.
Yeah, that's a better, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the certification system that was in place prior to 1995 was something that it was basically just a background check. You went to the police station, you filled out a one-page form, you got it back a few days later, and it either said, yes, you don't have any criminal record, or no, you can't have a firearm. It's a yes or no. If you got the all clear, you got this little card, the police officer signed it and said, you're good to go. And this was done at the local police station where these cops knew the area and the people that lived in it. So,
yep.
You had kind of a double check there as well. Now, this being called a acquisition certificate, it was only needed to acquire a firearm, not to possess.
That's correct.
So back then, simple possession of a firearm was not a criminal code offense. Mm-hmm. You did not get sent to jail if the police stopped you. You had a firearm in the vehicle, and they saw it. You were allowed to possess it without any paperwork. This FAC was for acquisition only. After you bought your firearm, you could burn the thing, and it wouldn't matter.
That's right.
But if you wanted to buy another one, you'd have to go out and get another acquisition certificate. So, that being said, a license, now the definition of a license is basically permission to do something from the state that is otherwise illegal.
Okay.
So to become a license, they had to criminalize possession of a firearm, which is what they did. They brought in sections 91 and 92 of the Criminal Code, and I'm sure that all your listeners should be familiar with it. I'll just read out section 91 real quickly.
Okay.
Every person commits an offense who possesses a firearm without being the holder of a license, or if you have a prohibited or restricted firearm, a registration certificate.
Right.
Okay, so if you don't have a license and you have a gun in your hand, you're a criminal.
Yep.
That's what it states. Your license is a defense against this charge under Section 91. That's what it gives you. It doesn't give you permission to go out and buy a firearm. It defends you in court against the charge of having one. And there's something called reverse onus which fits into this, and I'll get into that later on. But this is what a license did. Now they named it Possession Acquisition License, so you need this license to possess and to acquire.
Correct.
Okay, so there's a big difference between the two. And this is one of the things that I'm advocating for is getting rid of sections 91 and 92, because simple possession of a firearm should not be a criminal code offense.
No, it shouldn't be. I mean, it's
property.
Yeah, it's your own private property, and I mean, the argument is pretty straightforward that gun control has no effect on crime, no effect on. It's a people control issue. As far as I'm concerned, my hunting license is all I should need to be carrying a firearm in the bush, and the fact that I'm a breathing, law-abiding citizen is all that I should need to take a gun to the range.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, the license is I've got a little saying that I tell people now about the Firearms Act, and I state it as such: the Firearms Act is not directed at criminals; it actually creates them.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I've had people say the Firearms Act is a badly written piece of legislation. I actually disagree with that statement. It's a very well-written piece of legislation when you understand what the end game of the Firearms Act is. Go ahead. It was written with a confiscation agenda.
Oh, absolutely. It's the same piece of legislation, almost word for word, that Australia put in place to confiscate 90% of the country's firearms.
Yeah, and not to sound like a tinfoil hat guy or anything, but the wording of the Firearms Act actually has roots from Nazi Germany.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. We all sound like a bunch of wackos every time we bring up Nazi Germany or something. But, geez, look at what's going on in the Ukraine. Look at what's going on in the rest of the world, Syria, any place that is in conflict. The citizens are unarmed sheep that are being destroyed by wolves. It's happening all over the world, and has happened in history all over the world, over and over and over again. So no, you're not tinfoil hat. You're just speaking the truth.
And the one thing Alan Rock stated right from its inception is that he believes only the Army and the police should have guns.
Yeah.
And he said that this is to try and keep track of, or try and keep criminals from getting guns. Well, I hate to tell people this, but the Firearms Act has absolutely zero regulations directed at criminal activity with a firearm. It's all regulatory in nature, and like I said, it creates criminals through paperwork infractions. It actually sends people to jail for not having the correct paperwork.
Yep. Yeah. So what are you doing about it?
Well, I'm educating people here. Here's something else that I want to make people aware of. And actually, this is my little pet peeve, is when people refer to any of my guns as weapons.
Oh, yeah. Me too. I'm right on point with you with that one, Todd.
Okay. And here's why. There's two definitions in the Criminal Code of Canada. Okay, they like to define things more or less. And I'll give you the definition of weapon, and then I'll give you the definition of firearm, and I'll explain what's happened here. The definition of weapon means anything used, designed to be used, or intended for use in causing injury or death to any person or for the purpose of threatening or intimidating any person. Okay, now, with my guns, I don't know about yours, but mine don't jump out of the cabinet and go out on field trips of their own. And none of my firearms fit that definition. I've never used my firearms for any of that.
No, I agree with that. Well, hold on a sec. I remember my daughter's first boyfriend.
Okay, careful. You're gonna go to Mr. Paulson here.
Yeah. Well, no. I didn't strap one on or anything. I just gave him a little bit of a tour of the trophy room.
Oh yeah.
And that's for shooting 100 straight trap targets in a row, and that's for shooting 300 straight skeet targets. And here's a target that I shot at 25 meters with an IPSC gun, and so maybe there's a little bit of intimidation involved there. But anyways, carry on, Todd. Sorry.
There's with the advent of the Firearms Act, they actually added a phrase.
Right.
So this is the last phrase that's under the definition of weapon. Now, remember, the definition of weapon actually doesn't refer to anything. It doesn't define a thing or any particular object.
That's right.
It is how something is being used. It's an action. Weapon is a verb. It's an action.
Right.
I could throw a coffee cup at you and get charged with assault with a weapon.
Oh, absolutely. I know someone who got charged with assault with a weapon with a felt tip marker.
There you go.
That's the truth. There you go. Carry on.
At the end, what they added on with the inception of the Firearms Act, it added on this to the definition, and without restricting the generality of the foregoing, includes a firearm.
Huh.
So what they just did is they made it, instead of being an action, they just made it a thing.
Yes.
Okay? Now, when you go to the definition of a firearm, first four words in the definition means a barreled weapon.
Yeah.
Now they have tied the two definitions together to fit a weapon. And, if it's a weapon, then, of course, you're going to have to make regulations to control it, because all of a sudden it's big, scary, and danger, right?
Well, before that, a firearm was classified, if I'm not mistaken, the definition was an object that is capable of propelling something at a speed greater than 500 feet per second.
Actually, that is still in effect. It's to define a firearm from like a pellet gun or a Nerf gun or
Right.
something of that order.
Right.
So anything that, if it shoots a projectile faster than 500 feet per second, it's categorized as a firearm. But you can use a pellet gun to rob a store and still be charged with robbery with a weapon.
That's right. Because it's a weapon. It's not a firearm.
Because it's how it's being used.
How it's being used, exactly. Confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, but how they tied these two together, like the definition shouldn't be that way. Now, the definition of firearm, I only gave you the first four words. There's actually a whole paragraph here, and I'll read it to you. There's actually two separate and distinct descriptions of a firearm in here. So let me read the rest of it. So it means a barreled weapon from which any shot, bullet, or other projectile can be discharged and that is capable of causing seriously bodily injury or death to a person, and includes any frame or receiver of such a barreled weapon and anything that can be adapted for use as a firearm.
Wow.
Okay, so now we have a barreled weapon, and it's also defined as a frame or receiver. So for those people that don't know what a frame or receiver is, if you tore down your gun, if you took the barrel off and the stock off and the trigger assembly and everything, and you're left with this hunk of metal that everything else attaches to, you can compare it to the frame of your car. After you take the wheels and the engine and the cab and everything off, you're just left with a frame.
Right.
Legally, that is the firearm.
Well, sounds like a piece of metal to me.
It's a paperweight. It's a piece of metal. So,
Yeah.
the definition of a firearm should really be, an assemblage of parts that when assembled, is capable of discharging a shot, bullet, or other projectile.
Exactly.
Okay? So, but with those two separate, distinct definitions in mind, keep in mind any frame or receiver is considered the firearm. So if you, especially in the case of a handgun, if you just have the frame or receiver and you stuck it in your coat pocket and walked downtown and got caught with it, you will be charged with unlawful possession of a firearm.
Right.
Because that is the firearm.
But if you had the barrel and the stock, you'd be okay.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Those are interchangeable spare parts.
Right.
Okay? Now, there's another little tidbit that the reason I got really into that is because there's another section of the Firearms Act, Section 9, and this is interesting. Section 9 actually deals with who in a firearms business needs a license. Okay. But there's in Section 9, Part 4, Subsection 3, get this, I'm going to read it slowly so that it sinks in. Firearm, quote unquote, does not include a partially manufactured barreled weapon that, in its unfinished state, is not a barreled weapon. Okay. So, digest that little piece of information.
I'm trying to. Jay, repeat it one more time there.
Okay. Firearm does not include a partially manufactured barreled weapon that, in its unfinished state, is not a barreled weapon. Okay. So basically what they're trying to tell us here is that if it's incomplete, it's not a barreled weapon. Right. Or a firearm. But if you go back to the definition of a firearm is the frame or the receiver.
That's right, which is an incomplete. So it's contradictory is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Now when I found this little tidbit, I thought, oh, woohoo, we got to know. There's a way around it. But then I realized in searching through a little bit more that it applies only to firearms businesses, which kind of sucked, but it is what it is.
Right,
but
right.
Even having it in the Firearms Act at all was a real shocker. Mm-hmm. Because what part of the firearm has to be missing for it to be incomplete and not a firearm? So because it's at your gunsmith and he takes the stock off, it's no longer a firearm.
Interesting.
Or takes the barrel off, it's no longer a firearm. That's basically what that's saying.
Yeah, but the other definition is saying that if the receiver exists, it's a firearm.
Exactly. So, this whole act, like I said, it's contradictory in nature.
Well, see, that's the reason we say it's a bad law. I know the design of the law was to disarm the country, and in the way it's written, it's well written to do that. But that's why the legislation itself, Bill C-17 and Bill C-68, have to be scrapped in their entirety and have new sensible legislation written up. Tinkering with sections 91 and 92 and whatever else is not going to. You can't fix You can't fix it. It's broken beyond being fixed.
No, that's exactly right. I compare it to a house that's full of mold and cockroaches.
Yes, exactly. You can replace the drywall and kill all the cockroaches, but
not the nest there.
You still left the nest. You still left the problem. The structure of the bill is still in place, and it has to go. And you know what? If the Conservatives aren't willing to do something about it before this next upcoming election, I believe it's their bill now. It's not a Liberal gun bill. It's a Conservative gun bill because they've had 5 years to do something about it.
Yep, I totally agree. I definitely agree on that. Actually, you touched on a point that I would like to go in depth just a little bit more.
Oh, sure.
And that is Bill C-19. Now, especially for the older guys and some people that may not really have been paying attention, I think an understanding of what this bill actually did is very important.
Okay.
Okay? So to understand what they were doing, you have to understand that there's actually two parts to the Firearms Act. One is the licensing, and one is the registration. And they're two different separate critters. Mm-hmm. Okay? The person and the firearm is what they're dealing with. Okay? Licensing deals with the person. Registration deals with the firearm.
Correct.
Okay? So the registration certificate is only a little piece of paper that's supposed to identify the firearm that you set next to the firearm. Somehow that makes it all safer.
Yeah.
Bigger. Okay. The licensing aspect of it registers the person.
Exactly.
Now, C-19 only affected this little card that you set beside your firearm.
Right.
Called the registration. Okay? And the registration that you don't have to get this little card for your gun anymore, but the registration only dealt with non-restricted firearms. And again, for those that don't know, non-restricted is like rifles and shotguns, the long guns. Restricted is mostly handguns, and prohibited section is full autos, short-barreled handguns, 32 caliber handguns, and 23 caliber handguns.
Well, and also now the new Swiss Green series of firearms in the CZ850. Yeah, when you say this stuff out loud, it really hits home at how ridiculous the laws are. Like, you're talking about it's, non-restricted is mostly long guns, and prohibited are usually full autos and certain handguns in some odd calibers. But for what, excuse my language, but for what goddamn reason? There is no reason for it.
It was an arbitrary reason.
Yeah, exactly. It's, baby Browning, for example, is a prohibited weapon. Have you ever shot a baby Browning?
Personally, no.
No, a little 25 caliber automatic center fire that fits in the palm of your hand. I would let you shoot at me with that at 50 feet. I would.
For hitting anything.
Yeah, first of all, you'd be lucky to hit me, and if you did, I don't think it would sting any more than a pellet gun because of the loss of energy by that distance. Why is it prohibited?
I have no idea.
There is no logical reason for it.
Yeah. People have to remember that C-19 only got rid of the registration portion that affects rifles and shotguns, the non-restricted.
Yes, that's correct. Let's get back on...
C-19 had absolutely nothing to do with licensing, which is the bulk of the problem. Licensing is what's going to get us. Because it's the licensing part, just the act of having a license means that you're a criminal. Or a criminal in waiting, and that's how the police basically treat everybody, as a criminal in waiting, because you are a criminal unless you prove that you're not, through reverse onus.
That's exactly true.
Okay, so, and reverse onus, it's in several sections here. I'm just running through my my paperwork here so I can find it. I can give you the sections. But there's several sections that basically tell you that you cannot own something unless you prove that you're innocent. There it is. Okay, Now I found it.
Yeah.
Okay, Section 112, subsection 4. Wherein any proceedings for an offense under this section, any questions arises as to whether this person is the holder of a registration certificate, the onus is on the defendant to prove that the person or you is the holder of the correct certificate.
Yep.
Well, there's the first instance of reverse onus.
Guilty till proven innocent, yeah.
That's right. Section 79. The burden on the applicant is the way it's titled. Section 79, subsection 2, a superior court shall dispose of an appeal against an order made under paragraph 76A by dismissing it unless the appellant or the defendant establishes to the satisfaction of the court that a disposition referred to is justified. So again, you have to prove to them that that you're innocent, or that more the other questions that are arising meet their criteria.
Yes, yeah. And in what other legislation or law of this country is that written, other than the Firearms Act?
Well, there is a few places. I believe the Tax Act has reference to it. I think there's
Bingo.
2 or 3 other places.
Bingo,
but it's
right
not
on.
Very
yep.
common.
Yeah, taxes and firearms.
Another section, Section 775, subsection 3. At the hearing of the reference, the burden of proof is on the applicant or holder to satisfy the provincial court judge that a refusal to issue or revocation of a license, registration, certificate, or authorization, the decision of the refusal to approve or revocation of the approval was not justified. So basically, you got to go up in front of the court and tell the judge, you were wrong, and then you have to prove it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the most blatant examples. There's more there, but those are the worst ones. You remember the fella Ian Thompson?
Yes.
Okay, now this actually has two examples. One I've already explained about weapon versus firearm, and then reverse onus. Mm-hmm. Okay, when he was charged with a whole slew of offenses. You know, the old adage, if you throw enough mud against the wall, something's going to stick.
Yeah.
Well, all the charges were dropped except for safe storage charges.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the unsafe storage is another example of reverse onus because he had to prove that he was innocent. He was just accused of it, and on the flimsiest grounds, they said you got to your guns too quick, so they couldn't have been stored safely. That was the reasoning behind their charge. It's like, what the devil are you thinking here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about weapon versus firearm is that he had a firearm when he brought it out. When he used it to defend himself in his home, it became a weapon. Again, going back to the definition of a weapon used to threaten or intimidate, well, that's what he was doing to protect his life.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Soon as the threat vanished, it ceased to become a weapon. It was, again, a firearm or a gun. I hesitate to use the word firearm right now because of the criminal code definition, but
mm-hmm.
there it is. It's in the use of the object you're using, like felt tip pen. It's how you use it, not what it is.
Yep. Yeah. I don't even know where to go with this. On that Ian Thompson case. Now, what was the final outcome of his safe storage charge? He won everything, right?
He did win, but
at what cost?
At about a $60,000 charge.
Yeah, $60,000 for doing what's right.
Yep, but the thing that people don't understand is the process is the punishment.
Yes. Yeah. The jail time and the jail time and the fines are not the punishment. It's the process.
The cops have to do is lay a charge and then say, well, let the court sort it out. Well, it should never get to that point because the process is the punishment. By the time you're done with the stress, the monetary, all the going through the courts and everything, you might as well have been in jail. Because anything you were doing with your life has to be put on hold until this is resolved. That's
right. Yeah. It's just it's a bad law. It's a ridiculous a ridiculous situation that we're being put in for the simple reason that we enjoy hunting outdoors and our firearms. Even the most simple creature on the planet, the amoeba, one-celled creature, will defend itself to the death to stay alive.
Oh yeah. Have you ever seen a mouse and a dog standoff?
Oh yeah.
The mouse doesn't stand a ghost of a chance, but he's up there gnashing his teeth and chirping away, and if that dog's nose comes close, he's going to grab a hold of it with his teeth.
Yeah.
The dog just playing with him.
Mm-hmm.
The mouse is going to lose and get eaten, but the mouse is still defending himself. Like, this is my life.
Yeah.
I deserve to have it. I'm going to defend it.
Yeah.
And that's something that we don't have.
Well, we don't have that right. We do not have the right in Canada to do... Well, now, I shouldn't say that. It is written into our Charter of Rights that we are allowed to use equal force or however that's written to defend ourselves. But unfortunately, once the charges are laid, as you have just described through so eloquently through your descriptions of reverse onuses, you're ruined anyway.
Yeah. See, we actually, under the law, we actually have a right to self-defense, but the tools needed for an effective self-defense have been taken away from us.
Yeah, that's probably the
right
best.
To defend yourself, but don't use a gun.
Yeah.
No, that's strictly forbidden. No, you can't. That's bad. You might kill the robber.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's why I would be using the gun. I wouldn't be using it to threaten them. It would be.
Well, I never advocate violence, especially in public. So, equal force is one thing, but, when you come to an instance where your house is broken into in the middle of the night, you're groggy, it's dark, there's a stranger standing there, your wife and family are sleeping, what really do you expect a guy to do? Just take whatever you want and get out.
Yeah, well, what if it's your daughter he wants?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'd rather... Again, be judged by 12 than carried by 6, but it's just the firearms issue in Canada has gotten to be so ridiculous, and we think that we have, when we voted Stephen Harper and the CPC into power, we thought we had a gun-friendly parliament going in. I think we were wrong. Do you agree with that?
To a degree, yes. My MP always tells me, well, who else are you going to vote for? Like it's a veiled threat or something.
Exactly.
I've been thinking long and hard on this, and man, if there was a libertarian candidate, I would be thinking twice. It's the devil we know, and instead of the devil we don't know type thing.
Yeah.
But at least right now they're willing to work with us, and I'm willing to work with the system that we have at present, unless we can get into it and change it. And that's where I advocate everybody get involved in your EDAs, get involved in the process of picking and choosing the candidates,
yep.
and then back them up during election time. That's the only long-term solution. Anything else is just farting in the wind, basically. Well,
it sure is. And for those of you who don't know, EDA is your electoral district. Go ahead. In Alberta, what do you guys call it? Association. Here we call it your riding association. So,
association. Maybe people would understand that better. So it's what people have to understand is that the riding association is who picks the candidate that becomes the MP.
That's right.
Okay. Now, if you have problems with your MP and you don't like what he's doing, and you don't like the stuff that he's doing in Parliament or something that he says, the only way to get him changed is to join your EDA
mm-hmm.
and get the change done through that. Because as soon as you have enough people of the same opinion in a riding association, you can say, we don't want this guy in here, vote him out.
Yep.
And that's where your MP can be voted out, is right there.
Yeah.
So with that understanding, get involved. The world is run by those who show up.
It is, yeah, and you know what? That's a shame. I was reading something a little whacked out here a little earlier tonight about how the democratic system doesn't work because the least educated, as long as they vote, have an opportunity to change the system, and our three-party system and so on and so forth. It was a rather interesting read. It almost says that we need to change our entire way of thinking when it comes to politics, and not even show up. Just ignore that it exists. It's scary. It's scary stuff. It really is. But it is the truth. I mean, I voted in good faith for Colin Carey, my local MP, as a Conservative, and I asked him straight out at a picnic down at Lakeview Park, where we were sitting at a table with my provincial Conservative and the mayor of Oshawa and himself and myself, sitting at a picnic table just enjoying a hamburger and a pop at a fundraiser. And I asked him exactly where he stands on firearms, and he basically lied to me. He told me, I am 100% in favor of scrapping the entire C-17 and C-68. And then in the last letter that I sent to him 4 years down the road, he denies saying that. He says, no, George, I just said that we were going to get rid of the long gun registry.
Yeah.
Now, either I'm, hard of hearing or stupid, or I've been lied to. Which one do you think it is?
And there's a perfect example of if you're involved in the riding association, and you can literally take over a riding association with a minimal amount of people. In some riding associations, you'd be shocked at how few people are actually there.
No, we did it with the provincial, with Jerry Ouellette, and it was amazing. For the nomination vote, there was less than 500 people there, and 400 of them were from the Oshawa Gun Club. So guess who we got in?
Yeah, precisely. That's what I mean. You get a whole bunch of people in there, sell memberships to your gunny friends, and you're basically stacking the vote.
Yeah,
you're doing it legally according to the rules.
Yeah.
So unless you get involved in that process, you're always going to be bitching and complaining about it. And personally, I don't have any room for complaints unless you have some sort of a solution behind it. I'm stating what's wrong with the Firearms Act, and I'm stating also, here's a possible solution. I don't want to be just saying, well, this is wrong, that's wrong, this wrong. Well, how are you going to change it? Well, I don't know. That's what you get from a lot of people.
Oh, you do get that from, and to try and get people involved too it is a tedious task. I remember when Jerry Ouellette, our MPP for Oshawa Durham here, was taking a run at the seat for under the Common Sense Revolution with Mike Harris. How difficult it was to get people to come out and vote in that constituency vote. For that EDA, as you call it, a riding association vote. It was like pulling teeth. We were picking up people at their houses, phoning to confirm 3-4 times a day. Now, Jim, you're sure you're going to come out? Now, Jim, can I, if you need a ride, or if you need some gas money, or if you need, us to take you to dinner before you go to make sure that you get there to vote, we'll be there to do. Like that's, I'm probably exaggerating there, but it's almost at that point.
You're not too far off. Maybe here's another little section that maybe will energize people a little bit to talk to their MPs. Now you're in Ontario, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
I apologize for that. Sorry for taking all your Alberta oil money, but we need it to keep the single mothers on welfare here. So
okay.
I apologize.
Well, you know what a chief firearms officer is, Dan?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Lots of experience with a chief firearms officer.
Yeah, I was in the business for 25 years, so yes.
So have you ever wondered where they get all their power from?
No, you go ahead.
It's a piece of the Firearms Act, Section 58.
Yeah.
And there's a couple things that's wrong with this. I'll just read this little section here, and then I'll dissect it for you.
Okay.
A chief firearms officer who issues a license, an authorization to carry, or an authorization to transport may attach any reasonable condition to it that the chief firearms officer considers desirable in the particular circumstances and in the interest of safety of the holder or any other person.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, that's a wide open one, I'll tell you. First off, the wording of this just is abhorrent. It gives them carte blanche to do basically whatever they want, as long as they attach these conditions to an authorization to transport, an authorization to carry, or a license.
Yep.
Which isn't hard. And they did that to you by having you get a permission slip from a gun club so you could take your gun there.
Yeah, for competition, you needed to have an official invitation to go to that club. I mean,
it's ridiculous. How much paperwork do you need to get from point A to point B? But here's the thing.
Yeah, and don't stop for gas or a sandwich, God forbid.
Oh, God forbid that. Okay, the first two words, may attach.
Yeah.
They can do it or they can't. It doesn't tell them they have to do it or they can't do it. It says, well, just use your best judgment.
Yeah.
Okay? Reasonable condition. Okay, reasonable condition according to who and what criteria. Okay? What's reasonable to you or me, to an anti-gunner, is going to be something else entirely.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's just a license. You know, it's just something that you have to get from us for permission not to be thrown in jail. You know, it's reasonable to them, but it's an affront to our liberties to the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's basically, this is all based on somebody's opinion.
Oh, yeah, that's, I mean, they just changed the Explosives Act that was written in the, 1908. And there was a lot of that wording in that act back at the turn of the century, a reasonable amount of ammunition, firearms, gunpowder, propellants, things like that.
Okay, another one that's in here is what the CFO considers desirable.
Yes.
Okay, now if he's got an anti-gun agenda, which most CFOs are.
Yes, except for our local one here. But anyways, carry on. Yeah.
What they consider desirable, given the policies and principles of this act, which is confiscation, what's considered desirable is anything that makes our life miserable or takes away our guns.
Pretty much, yep.
Okay, so this section basically tells a CFO that his opinion can be turned into policy, because that little tidbit about the permission slips from you guys is actually a policy. It's not law, it's a policy backed by law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the CFO is giving you his opinion that's backed by law. So he's making law based on his opinion.
Exactly, yep. A non-elected official.
Creating law.
Making law, yeah.
Even if you're a non-gun owner, this should scare the bejeebers out of you, because any police force that starts creating its own laws as it goes has a name.
Yeah, go ahead.
Called a police state.
Police state, absolutely. We call them brown coats, whatever you want to call them. Yeah.
Whatever you want to call them. But that is the beginning of a police state, when you allow police to make laws and enforce them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the job of the police to make laws or change laws. Their job is to simply enforce what our elected representatives put forward.
That's right.
We shouldn't be having to fight the bureaucracy. We should be having to discuss this with our MPs, but I think what's happened, this is just my personal opinion, is the bureaucracy has gotten so big and cumbersome that not only does the right hand not know what the left hand is doing, but your thumb doesn't know what your forefinger is doing on the same hand.
Well, that's not a matter of opinion. That's a matter of fact. The bureaucracy is so huge now that and full of personal agendas. It's all over the place in the taxation system, in the firearms code, in just about every branch of government. It exists, and exists in a huge way.
Yeah. Have you ever been a reference for somebody getting a firearms license?
Yes.
Were you ever phoned on that? Check your reference.
You know what? I don't think so. I don't think any. No, wait a minute. Yeah, one of the general managers at a Hyundai store that was just getting into it used me as a reference, and I was called by our local firearms officer.
Okay, I am going to give you a list of the questions. Now, I've been called on this.
Yeah.
There's a couple friends of mine that I actually gave them their firearms course, and they used me as a reference afterwards. Well, actually, no, I gave them their hunter training course, sorry, and they got the firearms course from someone else, so I could be used as a reference. But anyway, I was their reference, and these are the questions that are asked. And until I had actually heard it for myself, I was a little bit skeptical, because if I don't hear something firsthand, I'm always a little bit leery about using that information, because if it's second or third hand, you don't know how diluted it is.
Right.
But these are spot on. These are bang on, word for word. Okay, these are the questions that the CFO will ask you as a reference for somebody else. Were you pressured in any way to act as a reference?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about any situations where this person has displayed violent behavior in the past. Tell me about any circumstances where this person acted in a way that caused you to feel that he or she would become violent. Tell me about circumstances or any situation where this person would approve of violence to resolve a problem. Tell me about any circumstance where this person has ever made statements showing a fascination with violence, such as school, workplace, or any other types of violence.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you would like to add about this person that I haven't asked? And you have no issues or concerns about this person having firearms. Okay, now these questions are very leading.
Yeah, oh, they're leading. That's there. It isn't a yes or no type question. It's can you give me an example of when they have said this, or done this, or acted this way?
They're assuming that this person is a criminal, and they're trying to catch them.
Yes.
They're trying to gather evidence. These are questions that you might be expected to ask if you're being questioned by the police when they're trying to gather evidence against you or somebody else that's a known criminal.
Yeah.
So we are being, the person is being treated like a criminal before they even get a firearms license.
Yep. Yeah. It's a rather scary situation. That's for sure. I remember getting asked almost those exact same questions. I'm pretty sure. It was about I'm going to say 2010, 2009, but it did surprise me. The way the questions were asked. It's like has he ever? Well, no, he's never. Done that or acted that way, or it was like they're saying, can you give us another example? Like they had an example in mind. Yeah. That's I do remember that, but it was a few years back. I don't too often get used as a reference. I guess you you're a hunter safety trainer as well out in Alberta, are you?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Between 10 and 15 years.
Very good. Now, did you see any reason to have both those courses, the hunter safety as well as the firearm safety?
Well, I'm all about education.
Yeah.
Okay, number one, I grew up in a family of teachers. My mom, my dad, my stepmom, my aunt, my uncle. That's just my immediate family. But that being said, you need to educate people. My dad taught me about firearms, how to be safe with it, and this to just be an extension. Now, if you don't have somebody to mentor you, then yeah, there's a place for this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not put forward by the government, because that's always the most expensive and least effective way of doing it, but it needs to be done. I remember taking the hunter training course in grade 8. Yeah,
I was about, yeah. Oh, how old a man are you?
About 48.
48, so you're a little bit younger than me, yeah. So it was, I don't think we had it in school because I'm from Ontario, but I think I was 14 or 15 when I took my my hunter safety course. And once the hunter safety courses were introduced into the geez, I'm losing my words here. The Hunters of Canada, into the heritage, it reduced any accidents and hunting accidents and things like that by dramatic numbers in the 50s and 60s. Okay? Do you remember that, or do you remember seeing what the numbers were before and what they are now?
No, actually, those numbers I don't. I rely on other people for those particular numbers themselves. But that's another topic. I think another rabbit hole that I really don't want to go down right now. At any rate.
yeah. No. Well, what I'm trying to get at is that these extra courses that are required now in order to get a PAL or an RPAL are really duplications of stuff we've already taken.
Yeah, in a lot of ways they are. Like, there is a certain amount of firearm safety and discussion in the hunter training course, but in those courses, we're not allowed to let the students actually handle the firearms.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And why is that? Because I know I was handling firearms in my hunter safety course.
And as was I. And I learned how to handle firearms from my father as well.
Yeah, well before that, I'd been shooting skeet since I was 8. This was just a formality to get my hunting license here in Ontario. But Are you not allowed to let the students handle the guns?
No, I'm not. I think it's kind of a safety reason or some such thing. There's no hands-on testing in a hunter training course anymore.
Oh, is that right? And now, do you think that's just in Alberta, or do you think that's maybe countrywide?
It probably differs from province to province because the hunter training course is a provincial jurisdiction.
Yes, yeah, okay. So maybe that's where I'm getting a little bit of confusion from, because I'm pretty sure here we actually have a range day with our trainees.
I'm sure that you can work that into it, but I'm not going to get into what's going on in a different province because I personally don't know. I've never taught in another province. The curriculum is probably a little bit different. We have our Alberta Hunter Training Manual, and I'm sure Saskatchewan's got one, and Manitoba and Ontario and everybody else has got their own version of it.
But, that has been the most successful program nationwide, hunter safety programs, and it's all been initiated by non-government entities.
Yes, it's usually Fish and Game outfits that present that sort of thing, and I think that's a good thing because goodness knows there's enough people that can't tell a white-tailed deer from a mule deer.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, we don't have those beautiful muleys out here, but absolutely.
The difference between a moose and a black horse can be difficult for some people.
Well, at 300 yards, it is difficult. They got the same head.
If you don't know what it is, you shouldn't be pulling the trigger.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, 100%. 100%. Now, what's the next direction you're going to head in with what you're doing now? Like, what do you have that's going on? We got about 2 or 3 minutes left here. Okay.
Actually, I've got my paper. I'm going through my paperwork here. A little initiative that I've started. It hasn't really gone far, and it's just something I'm thinking about and just discussing.
Okay.
Just to get people thinking. I call it a firearms charter, for lack of a better word, and it's just a few policies and principles that if the Firearms Act gets replaced, this is the kind of thing I'd want to see it based on.
Okay.
One of the things I want to base it on is no criminal sanctions for victimless crimes. Like safe storage charges, those are really a victimless crime. If a cop walks into your place, you're cleaning a gun, he says, "Oh, unsafe storage," and now you got to prove yourself innocent. You got to defend yourself against a charge. Again, the process is the punishment in those instances, and there should be no criminal sanctions for doing that sort of activity.
Agreed.
Okay. No new laws that already deal with the misuse or mishandling of guns. Murder is already on the books.
Yeah.
You know, whether you murder somebody with a knife or a gun, is he any less dead? Like, really, okay?
100% with you on that one, yeah.
If you rob somebody, robbery with a weapon, it's covered.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need more laws.
Yeah, the weapon could be a knife, it could be a gun, it could be a coffee cup, could be a felt tip pen, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But it's already covered. Robbery with a weapon.
Yeah.
Again, it's how the object is being used, not what it is.
Right.
Okay? Fact-based policies. Stuff that can be proven. And those policies have to be set in place with sunset clauses.
Okay, we're down to 1 minute here. Okay, yeah.
If those policies are proven not to work after 5 years, like a review after 5 or 7 years, and if you come back and say, well, it made no difference, what's the point of having it?
I agree.
So we need some sort of sunset clauses in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Some sort of a gradual decrease in restrictions, because the reason we need some restrictions now, I think, like there's going to be a few there, mostly because we've lost a generation of people to this insane kind of gun legislation and social re-engineering.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. You know what, Todd? We're going to have to get you back on another show again, and we'll do that very soon. I'm going to have to sign off here from the Politically Incorrect Redneck. If I go over an hour, the show won't get published, and that's no good to anybody. So,
I have a blast being on here. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, Todd, you take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, that was Todd, and he was a fantastic guest. I am saying goodnight from the Politically Incorrect Redneck.